I thought we were going to have to wait a whole year to get Forbidden Door 2. I didn't know it was going to happen in less than 24 hours. What's going on, guys? Welcome to your WWE Raw review for June 27th, 2022. Tonight's Raw marked the 20-year anniversary of John Cena in the WWE. He has been advertised for several weeks to be a part of this. A lot of nice little tributes to him leading up to this event, celebrating his 20 years in the company. And most of the show was centered around him and his return, and that's kind of what it was all about. It's also the go-home Raw to this weekend's Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which is on Saturday, and we got a couple of final qualifiers there with Riddle and Becky Lynch kind of bookending this whole show. But the John Cena return was kind of largely what tonight was about, and as we're going to talk about, I feel like it was somewhat of a letdown. We didn't get a lot of information from him. He actually said he's going to be leaving. He doesn't even know when he's going to get back in the ring again. I kind of thought we were going to get some sort of a Mark Henry-like swerve where he's going to intend on leaving, but then somebody like Theory or someone else is going to come out and stop him and give him a reason to face and wrestle someone at SummerSlam, because I personally believe that SummerSlam card, with all the injuries WWE currently has going on right now and the lack of star power that's kind of their own doing, I feel like SummerSlam could really use the John Cena name. Wouldn't you agree? So I kind of thought tonight, as we've been talking about for several weeks now would just be the night that John Cena kicks off some sort of an angle that will take him into a SummerSlam match against somebody, and we didn't really see that. Now, they can still turn around and do something here. It feels like, you know, without me knowing anything about the internet reports or what the dirt sheets are saying, it feels like they could still come around and do something maybe last minute here, because they did tease us as John Cena was leaving, saluting the crowd. You were waiting for somebody to come out. Then he goes down the aisleway. He takes his shirt off. He salutes the fans. He goes to the entranceway. He comes back out for an encore. Like, they gave you every opportunity here for someone to sneak attack him, and it never happened. And then we'd like go do a couple of segments. We come back, and then he's backstage talking to Seth Rollins and Omos, and you're like, okay, maybe this is something. And again, nothing. So I guess I'm holding out hope that maybe tomorrow morning at the nearby Starbucks, he will be jumped by Austin Theory getting a latte, and they'll set up their SummerSlam angle. Otherwise, it looks like, as of right now, no John Cena in the near future in WWE. Now, this could be because of his current schedule. I mean, his 20-year anniversary is not something that you can plan a specific time for. It is when it is. So if he already has prior obligations going on right now, he's in the middle of doing movies, I have no idea. But I was kind of hoping he would be back to at least work a couple times throughout the summer, or even maybe come back for a small run. But as we'll talk about when we get into his promo, he did say that he is going to be coming back. He will be in the ring at some point. He just doesn't know when that is. So we will elaborate a little bit more on that when we get to it. But I think the most exciting part of the show tonight was the fact that we got cameos from AEW stars, because John Cena it was kind of like the show running, arc of tributes that we had right from the beginning. He was given a hero's welcome, entering the arena, shaking everybody's hand. And then you get several tribute segments throughout the show, and a lot of it was, pre-taped messages from former opponents, friends, colleagues, comrades, whatever. And we saw the Big Show first, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool that they let Paul White do that, because it's not something that was taped years ago. This is recent. And then we see Brian Danielson wishing well wishes to John Cena as well. And you're like, holy shit, that's pretty fucking cool. And then we go do a couple of more of these segments. About an hour later in the show, we get another one of these segments with stars wishing well to Cena, and we get Chris Jericho. So there was a lot of AEW stars. Fightful Select has already had an article up on this saying that WWE contacted Tony Khan specifically and asked for permission to get a couple of cameos to use for John Cena's celebration. And without hesitation, he said yes. And I think that's terrific, because that's what wrestling needs. I mean, it doesn't do the fans any good for WWE and AEW to try to destroy each other or feel like the need that they have to destroy each other. This is not the same dynamic as WWE and WCW was back in the day. You can still be competitive with one another while having the occasional cooperative effort. You might need a favor from the other one. Hey, I need a quick footage from this guy. Hey, can I use this for this or whatever? And that's something that you didn't see a whole lot of back in the day with WWE and WCW, because they were so bitter towards each other. But you can have a competitive nature between two companies, but also, be there for the good of the audience, or for maybe the good of people that work in your company that may have a lot of history in the opposite company. You know, if WWE wants to do something nice for Cody one day and AEW owns something Cody related, they say, hey, can we borrow that? And, oh, yeah, sure, of course. So, I mean, I really hope this is going to be a normal thing in the future. I hope this is going to be something that when it comes to a tribute or a retirement or a Hall of Fame ceremony or anything like that, that the companies, for the right cause, doesn't have to be all the time, but for the right cause, can come together and do stuff. We've seen WWE kind of do this before with TNA, loaning Christian down there so they could get Ric Flair for the Hall of Fame. They've let, even in recent memory, Mickie James come on the TV with her theme song and the title belt. So there has been some, you know, lines being crossed over into that we're not really accustomed to. And I think stuff like this and having a little bit more of a cordial relationship with the two companies that's not so deep-rooted in hate and animosity like it was with Vince McMahon and Ted Turner and then Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff. You don't have that dynamic with these two companies. Sure, they're competitors. Yes, AEW is going to try to want a better WWE. They're both going to do their fair share of smack talking. Let them do that. That's what you're supposed to do. But for stuff like this, really made me happy to see that. And we've already seen a little bit of this. You know, Jericho did the Broken Skull Sessions, easy for me to say. Back in 2019 when AEW first started and they signed Billy Gunn, he came and did the DX Hall of Fame. So there's been little bits and pieces of the two companies, I know, doing favors for one another, and I think that type of relationship should continue. And I think Tony Khan, being a massive wrestling fan, being a former lifelong fan turned promoter, that's going to help him. You know, he's not going to have such an axe to grind with WWE. It's not like a, you know, some business rivalry he has with Vince McMahon or anything like that. He's a fan. He just grew up a fan. So, you know, he's, would probably like to have as good a relationship with WWE as possible while still acknowledging I'm your competition. I feel like we're better than you. But, you know, we don't wish death upon you. And that's, I think, the best relationship you can have with two companies because we, the fans, are the ones that's going to benefit the most from that type of stuff. When you have situations where somebody might be needed for a quick cameo, they're allowed to do it. WWE let AJ Styles do the Slammiversary bit last week or whatever it was. So you really, really like to see that stuff. And that was one of the highlights to me of the show tonight. But overall, I don't think Raw was a very bad show. So let me know what you think of it in the chat below or in the chat to the side or wherever you're reading the chat. Also, hit that thumbs up button for me. Make sure you subscribe if you have not yet already. And we're going to get into these results here, match by match here in just a moment. But I want to say hi to the chat and get all the pleasantries out of the way. And I haven't even done a sound check. I haven't been talking into dead air this whole time, have I? Nope. All right. We're looking good over here. All right, there we go. All right, let me see here. Let me say hello to Trey and Danny and Rodrigo and JJ and Sonic. We've got David in the house, Low Justin. We have Sinister Ray, Jet the Hawk, Deshaun, Victor. Good to see Monkey Wrenches in here. Seba, I don't use scuff, is here. We've got JJ Leg dropping in with $5. Thank you for that, man. Hard to believe that April will mark 10 years since Cena has main evented a Mania. No shit. This April? This April. So this will be what, 30? What the hell are we on? 39? 39 will be in LA. I'll be there. 29 was the last one he main evented. Are we sure he didn't main? I guess you're right. Shit. He didn't main event 30 or 31 or 32. Damn. 10 years. I mean, Cena's getting old. He's 45. He's my age. I even put on Twitter tonight, the dude's 5 years away from 10-year-olds being like, who's this old guy? You know, soon, you know, I think, well, he's so much of a household name, though. I think everybody's going to always know who John Cena is, kind of how most kids knew who Hulk Hogan is, even after, you know, even if they came around after most of his run was gone. But he's old, man. He's really, really old. I still fully expect him to win not only one WWE title, but probably two, although maybe I'm wrong about that after what he said tonight. And he's getting a little bit on the older side, but he's still in good shape, starting to lose the hair in the back. I'm allowed to make fun of him because, you know, I have no hair. So if you guys have a full head of hair, you can't make fun of him for going bald, but I am allowed. That's the rule. But thank you very much for that, JJ. Everybody else that is here, good to see you. Thanks for being here again on, I guess this is night 3 in a row. We were here Saturday for the podcast, last night for Forbidden Door. review. And here we are tonight to talk about John Cena. We will be here on Wednesday to do a live reaction of Blood and Guts. The links to all this shit is already on the channel, so please go over there and save these videos for this week. Also, Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. on the East Coast, we're going to predict Money in the Bank on Friday. And then, of course, on Saturday, we will be here after Money in the Bank and reviewing the entire show. After that, that'll be the last you hear from me for about a week, a little bit over a week, as I am heading off to Hawaii for vacation. So we got a long week of videos scheduled on the channel. It's going to be really fun. So make sure you're here before I have to take a little bit of a break. But I think there was anything else I wanted to get into before we start talking about the Raw results. I guess we can elaborate just a little bit more on last night's Forbidden Door. I think it's pretty safe to say that AEW hit a home run last night. I was really pleasantly pleased with most of the feedback. Naturally, you're going to have your fair share of haters that just fucking hate everything, but in terms of the overall feedback of the show, a lot of people were giving it high praise. And like I said, even prior to the show, I said, if you're a fan of wrestling, you should really like Forbidden Door. I would take the risk and spend the $50 if you're a wrestling fan, because I'm willing to bet that you will like it. And most people did. I've been hearing pay-per-view of the year from a lot of people. I've been hearing match of the year come out of the mouths of a lot of people concerning Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay. And I predicted that that would be the best match on the card. I didn't predict that some folks would think that's the match of the year. That's pretty incredible. From top to bottom, that card really flowed well. It was a packed card that many fans felt was going to go really, really long, and they got it done in 3 hours and 45 minutes. It was probably scheduled to go 4. Maybe a little time got shaved off with the Adam Cole injury or whatever, but they still finished that many matches in a relatively normal pay-per-view time for what time we live in now. So for them to pull all that off, for it not to feel rushed, for nearly every match to really come through and be solid, and the Chicago crowd to be jacked to the level that they were, completely marking out for everything throughout the duration of the night. There was never a time during the night where they felt flat. And overall, it was just spectacular and fucking fun. And AEW always comes through on these pay-per-views, and this was a pay-per-view that was injury-plagued. This is a pay-per-view where the card probably would have looked a lot better if you would have had certain people healthy. And some fans weren't as interested in this because it was featuring a promotion that they're not that familiar with and a lot of names that they don't know. So generally interest felt a little bit down. Even the ratings kind of reflected that a bit, as they had a little bit of a drop with the New Japan stuff. But this is a good shot in the arm for New Japan, because there are some great wrestlers there that deserve North American exposure. So this was a win, for wrestling all the way around. And if you think about how badly the injuries affected this card, if everybody is healthy next year and they choose to do this again, and we have another Forbidden Door, that's where you can get some of the really good matches. When you got a Danielson and a Punk and an Omega, and you got everybody there, holy shit, that can be a lot of fun. So the feedback I saw on that today was very, very positive from just about everybody in the wrestling community. I think AEW is here as a major, awesome alternative that wrestling was desperately in the need of. When Claudio's last match in WWE, Cesaro's last match in WWE was a 3.5-minute loss to Happy Corbin on SmackDown in February. And he went 18 minutes with Zack Sabre Jr. on Sunday at Forbidden Door. If you're a fan of pro wrestling, this is an alternative that we have been thirsting for quite some time. TNA came close. TNA had a great run, some great wrestlers there, but they didn't have the stability. They don't have the stability that Tony Khan does, the funding, the cable TV deal, and just the lack of internal turmoil that always seemed to be going on in TNA that I really think stunted their growth, their lack of vision, direction, ideas of what the company should be. That was an always constantly changing thing in the company, and I think that really affected them. So they kind of failed to become that real secondary alternative that we as wrestling fans need. So, not that I needed any more convincing, but I was at Double or Nothing last month, and I thought it was great. But I argue that I think even Forbidden Door was a bit better, and the crowd was just so amazing in Chicago. So, like I said, I think United Center should be AEW's Madison Square Garden, because they've had some great moments there already. So, Forbidden Door, good marks. I think I went a little... I think I undershot them on the grade I gave them. I think I gave them a B. I should have given them an A. I don't know why. I was just trying to be as fair as possible. Don't want to be, accused of being a cock guzzler or anything like that, like everybody loves to say on social media, so mature. But I was just trying to be as fair as possible about it, and I felt that maybe it was a B-plus show. Guess I should have gone A, because most people gave it an A. So it's a good weekend to be a wrestling fan because Forbidden Door was really great. And tonight's John Cena return and celebrating his 20 years was really nice, even though his promo was a little bit baffling, as we'll talk about in a minute. Him being there and just seeing him was quite awesome. I loved his new shirt patterned after this game right here, WWF WrestleMania on NES. This is the worst fucking wrestling game that has ever existed. If you know about NES, you probably know about this game. It's bad. It's bad, bad, bad. 6 wrestlers, ridiculous move combinations, and you can only do punches and kicks, and it's the worst game ever. But I really dug his shirt. You know, he had the Mario 3 one last summer, which was kind of cool. But as an NES fan, kind of cool to see the old school Acclaim WrestleMania NES game as his latest shirt. And, of course, him glad-handing all the people. But Cena coming back was nice. It was, you know, good to see the tributes. I'm glad that WWE treated his 20 years in the company as a big deal. I do think he's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time in WWE. I do think he's a Rushmore guy. He has built himself up to a point, much like The Rock did, to where I personally believe, based as being someone that was alive and well and remembers the Hogan peak of popularity. I was at WrestleMania 3. I was in the middle of Hogan's height, of his mega stardom. So growing up and being an adult now and seeing Cena the same way, I can honestly say that I think John Cena today in 2022 is every bit as much of a household name as Hulk Hogan was in 1987. I really think that. And they should treat him as a big deal because this generation's Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair is John Cena and The Rock. This generation doesn't know how lucky they have it. These are two pretty, stand-up guys. These are two pretty awesome role models. Two people that can be admired, who came from wrestling, worked hard, worked very hard, and got opportunities, made the best of those opportunities. And that's, how they made it. Choose opportunities over dreams. Don't hesitate. And they did great, and they achieved great things in wrestling and outside of wrestling. Rock, of course, is a little bit ahead of Cena, but Cena, following in Rock's footsteps, didn't do too shabby in his own right, and sounds like he's got plans for the rest of his life in terms of acting and movie careers and stuff like that. So John Cena should be celebrated in WWE. John Cena doesn't have the, nasty underbelly and the bad stories and the negative press that a Ric Flair has, that a Hulk Hogan has, with all the dumb shit that they've done that has kind of tarnished their name and legacy a little bit. You've got this new generation who doesn't have any recollection or memory much of Flair and Hogan, and their guys are people like Cena and Rock, and maybe even Austin to a degree, but John Cena for sure. And I think WWE did right by celebrating him tonight. But we will get into all that here a little bit at a time. Excuse me. Like I said, John Cena did kind of open the show. They were cutting to a backstage, the parking garage area where he arrives, and the superstars are basically just lined up waiting to shake his hand. Everybody's very happy. Somebody mentioned he got the Pamela Anderson at the Royal Rumble 1995 treatment. So he enters from the back. He's shaking everybody's hand, gives a little bit of extra love to people that he knows. Good to see Billy Kidman back there, gives Dolph Ziggler a big hug, and everybody... You could tell they were instructed just to be as happy as possible because they are just grinning from ear to ear. Everybody's like marking out for John Cena. But then you got Becky Lynch, who's just kind of sitting on the crate there, and she's not moving at all. And if you look down at her hands, she's just kind of going like this. Just the Orange Cassidy clap, just the most subtle, most, quietest clap. And she's doing the opposite of what everybody else is doing. She's basically doing the reverse Paul London. 15 years ago, right around this exact time, we basically just hit the 15-year anniversary of this when Vince blew up in the limousine and he's walking through the backstage area and everybody was, scared of him or kind of had this like straight look on their face. Nobody was showing any emotion at all. And then you had Paul London, who was laughing his ass off for some reason and got in a lot of trouble for that. So I like that they kind of reversed it here, and Becky Lynch did the reverse Paul London, but pretty hilarious to see her just pouting and pissed as Cena is going through and talking to everybody. So he makes his grand entrance there. And then we go to the ring. So Cena is not going to open the show. I was kind of thinking he would come right out. But instead, we get what I believe was a 20-man battle royal. I didn't even catch how many people were in this thing. I'm assuming 20. And it is for the final, I believe the final qualifying spot for the men's Money in the Bank. I got to look at all this stuff before we sign off here tonight and find out who all the final participants are. But Riddle wound up winning the battle royal. The Miz and Riddle were the final two. AJ was in there as well with Riddle. Now, The Miz got dumped out but not eliminated on the outside of the ring, and he kind of feigned a knee injury while the medics were attending to him. AJ is about to go for the phenomenal forearm on Riddle, and Miz gets up, pulls AJ out or eliminates him, I believe, and then reveals that his knee was never hurt at all, and it's down to him and Riddle. And Riddle wins after hitting a pretty shitty-looking, I have to say, RKO on the apron. I'm all for protecting yourself on the apron because I read this fact. You're going to have to dig in the internet to find a source on this because not many people know this. But if you look hard enough and you research the history of wrestling rings, a very obscure fact that you will find is that the apron is actually the hardest part of that entire ring. Look it up. It's true. So I'm all for protecting yourself on the apron of the ring, but it was a pretty shitty-looking RKO. But it was enough to knock Miz off the apron onto the floor, and Riddle wins the Battle Royal, qualifies for Money in the Bank. And I'd be perfectly fine with Riddle winning the Money in the Bank, too. I like him a lot. I have 3. I'm basically, I think, going to be happy with Riddle, Seth, or Sammy. Give me one of them. Good mic work, ain't complaining. But I suppose they could do Omos or something, which would suck. But we'll see what they do on Saturday. We'll be predicting all this stuff on Friday, by the way. We cut backstage, and we've got John Cena talking to the Street Profits, and they're hyping up whatever. I didn't pay much attention to them. And then we cut to the first of many John Cena highlight packages, and this one has a lot of messages from wrestlers, including The Big Show and Bryan Danielson, or Paul White and Bryan Danielson, who were called The Big Show and Daniel Bryan here. Also messages from Trish, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. So they were kind of the first batch there, and as soon as you saw Show and Daniel Bryan, you're like, that's kind of cool. That was my first immediate thought. I'm like, AEW must have approved this. You can't just do that. So for WWE to ask for these things and to be granted it, that's pretty cool. Not that surprising. I mean, Jericho was on Broken Skull Sessions. Tony Khan seems to be somebody who's open to this type of stuff based on his history so far. And the fact that he allowed this to happen, I thought, oh, that was really cool. I didn't know we were going to see Jericho later as well. So that was kind of nice. We get a couple of more career highlights of Cena throughout the show, mostly focusing on some of the moments in his career, like his debut, some of his title wins, shit like that. The next little package we get with messages from stars has Jericho in that one, along with Kurt Angle, who looked like he lost a ton of weight facially from his last match. Randy Orton was also a part of this. JBL, Stephanie McMahon, and Stone Cold Steve Austin all offered well wishes to John Cena. And they also had one of the many video packages that we saw dedicated to all of the Make-A-Wish wishes that he has granted over the years. He has set the record for that. He's, I forgot how many it is now that he's up to, but it's a ridiculous amount of his personal time that he has dedicated to this. And he really does deserve to be recognized for that, because there are lots of little kids that are obsessed with him, or he's their hero. And just imagine being a kid when you were a kid, whoever the person you were the most obsessed with, whatever superhero or actor or wrestler or whatever, and he came to your house and sat down and ate cake with you, you'd be shitting your pants. So I think that's awesome that John Cena does that for those kids and makes their day, because, they deserve it. They've got a lot of them have a raw deal, and it's just nice for Cena to be able to put that smile on their face. So I'm glad they kind of talked about that as well. But aside from what Cena would say in the ring later, all of the stuff that they had throughout the show, spanning the course of the show, dedicated and tributing Cena, was all really well done. Nobody does it quite like WWE when it comes to production. You can't argue with that. Our first one-on-one match of the night was Montez Ford against Jey Uso. What's going on with Montez Ford? This guy, he is just on the fucking cusp of a singles push here. I don't know how this company is not hitching their wagon to him already. This shit that they're doing with the Usos needs to wrap up at Money in the Bank. I hope they don't even win the titles. I am ready to see this guy branch out. He has gotten so much bigger. Montez was never a small guy, but he was tall and he was a little bit lanky, and he has just gotten so much mass now to him. He's just fucking huge, and his athleticism just makes me fall out of my chair. I think Montez Ford, I put this on Twitter too. I said, Montez Ford is what happens when 2009 LeBron James says, oh, I'm going to give this wrestling thing a try. I mean, his athleticism is crazy. He's fucking LeBron. He's Megatron. He's unreal. And his hang time and his air time that he gets on those frog splashes and his intensity and his charisma, he is one of their best possibilities for getting over. I know every time I say something like, this is one of WWE's best chances to recreate this person or recreate that person, it always fails. I thought Karrion Kross was going to be the next Brock. I thought that for about 5 minutes, but I did think that for a very short amount of time, and how wrong I turned out to be. But Montez, I mean, he's got everything that you would look for. He's got the charisma that, today's generation, I think, can connect with. And he's in the ring, just nobody can touch him in terms of how just athletic he is. He's even like on a whole nother plane than like a Ricochet, where Ricochet's got so much finesse and so much, agility himself. Montez feels like he's a professional athlete. Like if he was not doing wrestling, he would dominate on the gridiron. He would dominate on the basketball court. He'd be hitting fucking home runs in baseball. He looks like a major league athlete star turned wrestler. And he also is good looking. Like I said, he's got the mass, he's got the size, he's got the body, he's got the athleticism, he certainly has the intensity, the way he shakes the ropes like the Undertaker. He's got all the energy in the world that you would ever ask for. And I just think there's dollar signs in him. So I think after the Uso stuff or sometime this summer, Montez Ford needs to throw Dawkins through the barbershop window and get this thing done, because his potential, I don't even think he has a limit to his potential. It's that good. So I am Team Montez, if you cannot tell. Keep your eye on Mr. Ford. Boy, him and Bianca are going to be a good-looking couple. Those two with a couple of singles titles when they do inevitably carry singles titles at the same time, because they will. Maybe it won't be in 2022, but it will be soon. For sure. They're going to look pretty good. Becky, Seth, Bianca, Montez, mixed tag. I'd put some money on that one happening, for sure. After that, we got AJ Styles taking on The Miz. Miz is interviewed before the match, and he says a few interesting things here. He talks about Logan Paul. He says that they are going to be reuniting as a tag team at SummerSlam. Now, we already saw some photos from Logan Paul, who has been working out, and as much as I hate Logan Paul and people like him, you can't argue with how damn good he did at WrestleMania. He really did well, and he looked the part. I think he's one guy that could probably transition very well into becoming a pro wrestler if he wants to do it more often. But Miz says he's going to be reuniting with him, and they're going to be a tag team again at SummerSlam, maybe even going after the tag team titles. And at first I was like, are they pretending like Miz didn't attack him at WrestleMania? Because at the end of the match, if memory serves, Miz attacked Logan Paul, and I thought that was the setup to the one-on-one match at WrestleMania, at SummerSlam between Miz and Logan Paul. I thought that's what we were going to get. Now Miz is starting to say that they're a team again. What's his face who's interviewing? I always forget his name. Luckily, he brings up the attack, and he goes, but didn't you attack him after your win at WrestleMania? And he says, yes, but what you didn't see was backstage. I got together with him, and we talked, and I told him that was a learning experience for him, and I did that to teach him a lesson, that sort of thing. And then he starts to transition into defending the size of his testicles, because AJ has been talking for the better part of 6 years about the teensy-weensy, tiny, little, itty-bitty size of balls the Miz has. So he does not like that. He starts defending his ball size, and now it's time to get the match between AJ Styles and The Miz. The Miz runs away in this match and gets himself intentionally counted out. So I don't know what they're doing with AJ here, but it feels like they're going to put him in the middle of this Miz and Logan Paul stuff. So I don't know if Logan Paul is going to come back to TV after Money in the Bank to set up the SummerSlam stuff where they will either do a Miz and Logan Paul split and Logan and Miz will face one-on-one, or if AJ has to find a partner who will not be Balor anymore, and maybe they take on Miz and Logan Paul again in a tag match at SummerSlam, I guess is what they're doing there. I don't really know, so we'll find out probably in the next few weeks, but I'll be happy to hear your suggestions on whatever they have planned there. Cena is backstage again, and he is approached by Ezekiel, and this is great. And Ezekiel says, John Cena says, "Is Elias here?" And Ezekiel's like, "Yeah, but he's showing our other brother." I forget what's the other brother's name. I forget what it even is now. He goes, "He's showing our other brother around the arena," and Cena goes, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," which I love. And then Cena kind of closes their little conversation by saying, "Never forget who you really are." I kind of like that. And Ezekiel then walks away. Theory then shows up to talk to Cena, which I thought was the beginning of the seed planting between these two, perhaps. He brags about being the youngest United States champion and that Cena never did that. And Cena's like, yeah, you're right, or whatever. Brags a little bit more and then wants to take a selfie with John Cena. So he spins around, picks up the phone to take the selfie, but John Cena just walks away and he gets no selfie. So I thought that was the seed planted that maybe these two guys are going to do something at SummerSlam. And we would see, Theory maybe turn up later or whatever, but we did not. After that, man, you talk about a skippable segment. I love me some Bianca Belair, but I don't really love me a Bianca Belair and Carmella match at Money in the Bank. Don't care about this. This was a very formulaic promo with Bianca coming out there and saying babyface things, and then Carmella interrupts, says heel things, and they're facing each other at Money in the Bank. What else is there to be said? Bianca's going to retain there. Then we get Liv Morgan taking on Alexa Bliss, little promo, Brett and Perfect King of the Ring 93 style, backstage with the two baby faces. And Alexa says that she likes Liv, but she doesn't really have any friends. And, she's still with the Lily doll, and Alexa's still not completely snapped out of whatever the fuck's going on. But she vows to teach the young Liv Morgan a lesson. She says that Liv will be champion one day, but that's not going to be on Saturday because she won't win Money in the Bank. Blah, blah, blah. So we get the one-on-one match in the ring. Asuka comes out for commentary. I just wish the other guys would have just shut up and let her do it by herself, Joey Styles style, but they didn't. They kept talking over her. But in the end, Liv Morgan did get the upset win over Alexa Bliss, which I liked. I do like the story of them with Liv, where she is insisting that she will be WWE champion one day. The only thing about this with Liv Morgan is they don't need to take too long because it's not that crazy. People know this to be as a fact, but the women's roster is not that deep on both brands when you have two championship belts. And they don't even have a tag team division. That's why they had to basically just shelve the tag team titles for now until they just decide to pick them back up again. So when you have two championships on your women's roster, you got a lot of women out or quitting or injured currently. It's not like it should be that hard of a thing to achieve. You know what I mean? Like winning the women's title, you got an excellent percentage chance to win the women's title in WWE than you do the men's title in WWE just because of the amount of women there. So I think Liv Morgan needs to stop failing soon. And if she's not going to win Money in the Bank, I hope she does win Money in the Bank. Generally, though, her getting the win here makes me think she's not going to win Money in the Bank. Getting the win tonight, I should say. But her winning it would be fun. But one day when she does become champion, that will be great for her. But they shouldn't take too long here because otherwise, all the hard work she's putting in, the good matches she's putting in to continuously fall short like that. When so many women, maybe not even a couple not even as good as her, has held world titles before. You're eventually going to have to pull the trigger on the Livster, but we will see. Excuse me. After that, it was the top of the second hour, which means it's John Cena time. And out comes Vince McMahon. We hear No Chance in Hell start. We had a sold-out arena tonight. Cena's return really did boost ticket sales for WWE as they had upwards of 8,000 people in the arena tonight. Vince comes out, gets that hero's welcome from these idiots as usual. The roster is lined up down the rampway as well, which is kind of interesting. And then they go to commercial. So Vince sits in that arena all through that commercial break with those fans in there, which I thought was pretty funny. And when I saw him come out, I just kind of rolled my eyes. And then I got to thinking about something, and this is a crazy theory. This theory might not even be right. But when the scandal broke, Vince came out on SmackDown, and then he came out again on Monday Night Raw. Obviously, that was so he could send his own Vince McMahon direct message to the board or to the public or whatever to let everybody know what his intentions are, or just to send that message to them. But, he also showed up here for the John Cena thing to introduce John Cena. So I was wondering that, if Vince McMahon has always been scheduled for this Vince McMahon tribute or for the John Cena tribute, and after the scandal, if they felt that they still wanted Vince to do this, or Vince felt that he still wanted to be there to honor John Cena, maybe he came out those 2 prior times on TV just to get the fans a little bit accustomed to seeing him a couple times post-scandal. That way, if he did come out, that way he could be here for the Cena tribute. Because if he didn't make those 2 other TV appearances, that means the first time we would ever see Vince McMahon would be here, after the scandal broke, it would be here in the John Cena segment. And that would take the attention away from John Cena and what this is all about. Now, you could argue Vince should just stay away completely. I totally agree. He shouldn't have anything to do with this at all. But maybe the Cena stuff was part of the reason why he came out a couple of times, just because he's got to be on TV in a couple of weeks. And if he shows up then, it's, they're going to be talking more about Vince and his demeanor and how he looked and what he said, post-scandal, and all the attention is going to be on that. So it's possible. I don't think that's likely. I think Vince was just doing what he was doing anyway, but, it might be a reason. But you would, if you put the scandal aside, you would think that this is something that Vince McMahon is also going to want to be a part of. John Cena was a big part of the post-WWE and WCW war WWE life. He's been a big part of that. He's been their main guy for a good portion of that 20 years. And Vince, the owner, the promoter of WWE, is a guy that should be out there for that. But given the trouble and the hot water he's currently in, you could argue that he should just stay the hell out of sight completely. But, it is what it is. Vince was there. Stone Cold 10X. Appreciate the $2. Crazy how you didn't hear Cena sucks chants. You didn't really tonight, and that's why I thought this whole night was cool. And I think, like I've been preaching, and I don't want to beat a decade-old horse here, dead horse, but, I've never wavered, ever. And you guys have been listening to me for a decade plus, know this. I've never once wavered from my John Cena support or defense. Because I understood, the frustrations and stuff, but in terms of what wrestling needs, he's a great stand-up guy. He's a great champion. He wound up having great matches. He developed a great legacy for himself. And he was one of the most unique and different wrestlers ever because of the contrasting reactions he was getting from the audience that nobody before him was ever getting. And I didn't even think wrestling during John Cena's era was capable of drawing out that much emotion out of the crowd. And that was one of my biggest arguments back in the day. I'm like, it doesn't matter with John Cena. Like, every person in the arena is on their feet saying something to him. They're either screaming, "You suck," or they're screaming, "We love you." One way or the other, they're screaming. If somebody really sucks, and if somebody is really boring, you're just not going to pay attention at all or whatever. And the crowd is never quiet. You can tell when people aren't over. They come out to crickets. They come out literally no reaction from the crowd. So John Cena was getting a reaction out of everybody, and not many wrestlers can say they get a reaction out of everybody. There's only a handful of stars that really, can appeal or generate a reaction from all forms of the audience, young, old, man, woman, child, whatever. You can get some sort of reaction out of them, and Cena got that. So to see the fans now coming around, realizing that he's not Super Cena anymore, he's not here to take up spots and win 20 titles in a row and always get the opportunities and all that stuff. They were able to now calm the fuck down, look at the big picture, and realize that he ain't Hitler after all. As a matter of fact, he's a pretty good guy. Just like I have been saying all along. Has Cena won a match or two extra that maybe he shouldn't in his career? Of course. We're not stupid. We've always known that. But to direct your anger, onto the person, claiming he's selfish and he never does jobs, and basically just projecting a bunch of shit that you don't know what you're even talking about onto somebody that doesn't deserve it, always kind of bugged me. But John Cena didn't bug him. He took it. He swallowed it. So yeah, give me some more of that. I'm going to keep making money and keep headlining pay-per-views, and regardless of whether or not you think I can't wrestle, I'm going to continue to have match of the year candidates. And that's what he did for nearly 2 decades in the company. So he deserves all the adulation from the crowd. He deserves all of that to finally have that full circle moment to where the crowd and the fans don't hate him. I'm sure there's plenty of people that still aren't over their John Cena bitterness. They're never going to be. He made them so angry as, pent up adolescent teenage boys that they're just not over it yet. You still have those holdouts. I'm sure of it. But I think for the most part, most fans have come around on the guy. And it was nice to see him come out there and not be shit on, by a bunch of people that are just frustrated and don't know how to communicate their frustrations. And he is kind of now being regarded as the legend that I always believed he was going to wind up being. And this is coming from a guy that we've been talking about this recently too, just on the watch-alongs and the Forbidden Door last night. My favorite types of wrestlers are the AJs and the Cesaros and the Bretts and the Angles and the Benoits and the Mr. Perfects and guys like that. John Cena really wasn't for me. He wasn't my type of wrestler. I was just able to, lift the veil and appreciate him for what he is and not really worry so much about me. Worrying about the good of the business. Is he the right guy for WWE right now? Yes. Chris Benoit just murdered his family. WWE, after all the scrutiny they were already under with the Attitude Era and the racy content and, making Trish bark like a dog and bikini mud matches and tag team matches against God and all this other shit they were doing. Now you've got an Owen Hart and all sorts of other scandals, steroids, whatnot. Now you've got a murder. Now you've got a suicide that's attributed to drug abuse, roid rage, a lot of stuff that WWE could get in trouble for. It was time to make a shift pivot, or, a hard pivot there and go in a different direction, clean up their product a little bit, target maybe a little bit younger of a demographic, and they needed the right guys to do that. And I think John Cena was the perfect guy to fill that role. If you're 21 years old, are you going to like 2011 John Cena? Probably not. But it ain't always about you. And that world don't revolve around you. You're on that world. You're just along for the ride. Nothing is done for you. Nothing is designed to just make you happy and you only. It's not the way shit works. So I was always able to kind of understand that and get it. And by that point, we already had 2 titles in the company, so I was much more tolerant of that as well. Even though John Cena won a lot, you got a whole nother show with a whole nother pay-per-view and a whole nother championship belt. You have options even within WWE. It's not like it's a 1-hour show every week and 30 minutes of it is John Cena winning all the time. No, John Cena is a part of the show, a big part of the show, but he's not the whole show. And there's plenty of other stuff you can watch if John Cena bothers you. And he wasn't the only guy that was pushed in WWE. There was a guy named Triple H that did kind of good. A guy named Brock, what the fuck is that guy's name? The wrestler guy? Brock something. He fought in the punchy face company. MMC or something, MMA. Yeah, whatever that was. That Brock guy, he did pretty good too. So Cena wasn't the only one. So, excuse me. Cena was in the ring, and now it's time for him to cut the promo. Vince introduces him, like I said. Cena comes down as all the stars are lining the stage there. Even Bobby Lashley is out there. Ziggler's out there. They're all out there. And then he gets in the ring to start cutting his promo, and he really does take a lot of time to kind of suck in the adulation, to suck in the cheers, and he got a little bit emotional about it, and then he started cutting his promo, and the whole time I just thought it was going to be Cena, saying nice things to the fans, and then he was going to be interrupted by somebody. And he really seemed like he was, had something he wanted to get off his chest. He even said that much a couple of times, but the fans were cheering pretty loudly, so he kind of had to hold back. He even said, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get this out, so I need to say this to you now. I think he even said this 2 times, which is when I was expecting for theme music to hit. I was expecting Austin Theory or some other fucking heel or jackoff to come out there and interrupt him and start something. And that never happened. And he went on to thank all the fans for all of their support and even thank the people that cheered him and thank the people that booed him hard and acknowledged all of that. And then went on to say that he does plan on getting in the ring again. He will wrestle again one day. He just doesn't know when that's going to be. And he thanked everybody for the appreciation, thanked WWE for the time, thanked WWE for the 20 years, and just said that he will be back. He just doesn't know, what the future holds. But no matter what he does outside of a WWE ring, it's still all about him and his fans. He said it's all about, he was not just about me, it's about we. And whenever I accomplish something outside of this, we're all accomplishing it together. That was kind of the message he was sending. And during all this, I can't help but think of the Mark Henry promo, from 10 years ago when Cena was just standing there. And everybody to this day still says that they got faked out by the Mark Henry promo. Never once during that whole promo was I thinking Mark Henry was retiring. I'm like, nope. He's not retiring. If he was, John Cena would not be standing there. This is ridiculous. He's going to turn on him. I could see it coming a mile away. And I felt like this was kind of the same thing. I'm like, Cena's trying to get emotional here and said he doesn't know when he's going to be back. When they promoted this thing for weeks, we got the second biggest pay-per-view of the year coming up in a month. And this seems like the perfect time to bring him back, put him on that card, help boost ticket sales for the event, and give him a marquee match at SummerSlam. I think SummerSlam needs him. Cody is out, and they've had some other injuries. Roman's barely even there. They had to break open the glass and bring back Brock. So, Cena on the card, he should be there doing something. So the whole time he's cutting this promo, I'm like, somebody come out. And they never did. And then he signs off, tells everybody he loves them. The music starts playing. He's leaving down the aisleway. He takes his shirt off, starts going down the side area, talking to the fans. I thought he was going to get blindsided there. Went to the other side. I thought he was going to get blindsided over there, and then just leaves through the entrance. And then he turns around and he goes, they're telling me to come back out, and even does an encore. Still no attack. I thought that's where it was going to be, and somebody was going to come in and hit him from behind. So it's like WWE is teasing you that somebody's going to attack him, only to not do the attack, and for Cena to really leave and for him to not have a match at SummerSlam. That's really what they're doing here. They're purposely trolling us. Assholes. So anyway, he leaves and literally nobody attacks him, and I don't know what's going on. So I'll be interested to read what the websites pull up tomorrow or what they report on this situation. If John Cena really is in the middle of doing a movie, maybe he is. You can't plan to celebrate your 20th anniversary because your 20th anniversary is just when it is, just like when The Undertaker's 30th anniversary was in the Thunderdome. It's bad timing. So maybe Cena's in the middle of something. Maybe he's got another project starting up in July, and he's got a full plate and he cannot wrestle right now, so SummerSlam's off the table. But he at least came back to acknowledge the 20 years, let WWE tribute him, be a part of Monday Night Raw, and that's it. But to do this so close to SummerSlam and then just leave and not do anything, I'm still finding it hard to believe. And then later on, as he's leaving, he's approached by Seth Rollins in the parking garage. Omos shows up, and then Cena walks away. So they teased constant shit with John Cena, but he gets out of the building scot-free. So apparently now he's going to leave. So if there is any sort of last-minute 11th hour insertion of John Cena into SummerSlam, how the hell do they do it now when he has no reason to be on Raw? He just said, I'm leaving. I don't know when I'm coming back, unless he just decides that it's next week, which could be fun right after Money in the Bank, the post-Money in the Bank show. He could just show up on Raw and say, remember when I said I'm coming back, I just don't know when that is? Well, I know when that is. It's right now. He could do that. That would be fun, and that would be a good way to spark a pretty high number and a pretty good show on Monday night, coming off the heels of Money in the Bank. But maybe I'm being way too optimistic. Maybe I'm holding out hope and believing something that's never going to happen, and that there is no plans at all for John Cena to be a part of SummerSlam. I'm just really shocked at that. I thought he would be somebody that they would bring in. When is Brock Lesnar available and Cena is not? This is the opposite. It was always Cena that was there, carrying the flag and just being the workhorse. And now he's the one sitting out, and you got Brock coming into work and shit. Boy, how times have changed. So I'm not holding out. I'm not losing hope yet. We got a whole nother month, over a month, until we even get to SummerSlam. Lots you can do in that time, but I felt like anything that you were going to do or any sort of table you were going to set for SummerSlam would have been done right here on this show that you've been advertising John Cena to appear on for weeks. So it was a little bit of a baffling segment, but we will see. See if you guys have anything to say about it. Oh, do I think the old Bayley will come back when Bayley returns? I hope not. I was not a big fan of the old Bayley. I was a fan of the new Bayley. The new Bayley had so much more versatility. The new Bayley was so much funnier. The new Bayley could color outside the lines a little bit with her character and not just be so one-dimensional and just so white meat. And even though Bayley was over with the little kids and she gave them hugs and that was all nice, for a wrestling fan, boy, she was 100 times better as heel Bayley with the Aunt Pam hair. Loved it. Yeah, Trey, I'm with you, man. I don't think it's over for John Cena either. I think John Cena is going to be just like somebody like maybe Undertaker or anybody else that can, as long as they can physically wrestle, I think John Cena will have a wrestling match in his 50s. He's 45 now. I believe that he could win one or two more WWE titles still. And for anybody that thinks that's not possible, have you met WWE? It's literally what they do. If they can bring Hogan back to win the title in his physically decrepit age that he was in when they did, I fully believe that whatever age John Cena is in his 50s in WWE will be in better shape than Hogan was in 2002. Easily, I feel. And they've always brought guys back. They put the title on Goldberg at age 53. Another guy that John Cena, when he's that age, will be much better. He's just going to be better than him in the ring. He'll still be able to have somewhat good matches at that age. Excuse me. Than a Hogan or a Goldberg will. I argue he might even be a touch better than The Rock, because The Rock, even back at WrestleMania 28 and 29, he was Rock, but I still felt like he was a touch rusty. Plus, he was older, and I felt like he wasn't quite the Rock that he was in 2002, and he definitely won't be that now if he does get back in the ring this WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. But I think Cena will wrestle, provided no injury or anything else permanently forces him out. I think that even if he's gone and off TV for over a year, he's gone for a year and a half, 2 years doing movies or whatever, I think he will always come back. WrestleMania is every year. SummerSlam is every year. WWE needs names for this stuff. How many times in the past have they brought back the Hogans, the Brocks, the Undertakers to work a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania or a Goldberg or anybody like that? I think Cena, I think, will do a better job of not overstaying his welcome, where WWE, when they first brought Goldberg back, that first run, it was fine. It was short, sweet, to the point, and it even looked like he had a retirement speech when it was done. It was 3 or 4 times they brought him back to win the title that was a little bit too much. So as long as Cena doesn't do that, I can see him always coming back, but WWE's got to make sure that they have big stars in place to where they're not relying on Cena 5 years from now. Man, we're not going to sell any tickets for WrestleMania unless we bring Cena back. You should have guys that can sell the tickets without Cena by then, you would think. So it also depends on WWE, their future, how they book talent in the next few years if they have to go back to Cena, and what's going to happen when they sell the company, because they will, when Vince McMahon steps aside or passes away or he's no longer in charge anymore. Is it always going to be going back to the Cenas and the Takers and that stuff? Are they going to have that philosophy, or will the philosophy have changed by that point? We don't know, but I firmly believe that John Cena will have matches for the next several years, even if they're very rare. And even if they're in between movies, I think that he will headline some SummerSlams and WrestleManias for years to come. I don't think he's even close to done. I just think he's done full time. I honestly think 10 years from this moment, we could be talking about a John Cena match. I do. Like I said, he might only work 2 matches a year, but I think he's going to work them. So, yeah, I agree completely that Cena will be around for a long time. After the Cena segment, when he leaves and doesn't get attacked, we've got a handicap match with Otis and Chad Gable taking on Bobby Lashley. Of course, Lashley ran the table and did the gauntlet match last week, beating all 3 of these guys to earn an opportunity at the U.S. title at Money in the Bank. And Austin Theory has gotten himself as a special enforcer. I thought he was coming out as the ref, but then I noticed him on the outside of the ring for the majority of this match. So I guess he was the special enforcer for this, but even with that extra added help, didn't help Otis and Gable any at all. Lashley was able to tap out Chad Gable in the Hurt Lock, and then after the match, Theory jumps in and attacks. And again, here was another opportunity for John Cena. We even speculated last week that Cena could get involved in the Lashley and Theory stuff for the U.S. title if they wanted to do something like that. So as Lashley's getting worked over by all 3 of these guys, the crowd was even chanting Cena. So I was like, oh, maybe he'll come out. Maybe we have another chance. But Cena's not even needed. Lashley just fights all 3 of them off by himself. And based on the wrestling math there with the babyface kind of getting the last word here, I'm not that confident that Lashley will beat Theory at SummerSlam for the U.S. title. And that's why I was wondering if there was a way for Theory to somehow survive Lashley at Money in the Bank so he can face John Cena at SummerSlam. Because they did tease that shit tonight, right? I mean, maybe it was a tease for the future for Theory and Cena to do the little selfie bit backstage. That could be something that they can just draw back to a year from now. But if it is, in fact, seeds planted for SummerSlam, Theory's got to find some way to escape and survive that match with Lashley on Saturday with the title. He could have a lot of help from Otis and Gable, and something could happen in there where Theory escapes. And then if he does, maybe that's where you get John Cena coming back and getting on that SummerSlam card somehow. But otherwise, Lashley, based on his last 2 weeks on Raw, him owning the three of them last week and this week, you'd think he's going to win the title on Saturday. But something tells me Theory's going to walk out of that with the title. We'll talk about that on Friday. After that, we get a Cody Rhodes interview. So he had a little sit-down interview that they played for Monday Night Raw. He, of course, is resting up after his surgery to repair his torn pec, which he worked with at Hell in a Cell in that amazing 5-star match with Seth Rollins. He spent most of his time here just talking about his recovery. He looked pretty good. The big gnarly bruise is gone. And he hyped up Money in the Bank. Voiced his frustration for not being there, wish he could be there. He wants so badly to compete, but looked at all the competitors and talked about their strengths, their weaknesses, and who he thinks can win. So basically was just there to help hype up the show, which was nice. And it was good to see Cody, see his face, hear his voice. He says he acknowledged WWE's timetable of the 9 months and said that that's their timetable, not his, and is basically teasing that he will be back before that 9-month period is up. And that targets him right around the Royal Rumble. So we'll see if that certainly comes true or not. We mostly believe it will. Most fans do. And then finally, in the main event, this 3 hours went by relatively quick. It didn't even look like we had a ton of matches here. A lot of the stuff was John Cena related, like I said. And then it was main event time already. So Raw was not quite the chore to watch that it normally is. Now, I believe, I didn't even catch how many people were in this. I believe it was a 6-woman elimination match to qualify for Money in the Bank, right? The names I have written down that I saw in the match was Becky, Shayna Baszler, Doudrop, Xia Li, Tamina, and Nikki ASH, correct? Am I missing anybody there? I saw Becky Lynch eliminate Xia Li, and then she also tapped out Nikki ASH. Doudrop eliminated Shayna Baszler and Tamina, and then Becky and Doudrop were left in the ring together one-on-one, and we had a manhandle slam from like the second rope onto Doudrop for the win, and Becky sneaks in the back door and qualifies last minute for Money in the Bank, which we all kind of figured she would do, because Money in the Bank, with the star power that it's already lacking, I don't see how you're going to want to leave off Becky Lynch's name off of there. So she is now in the Money in the Bank match, and we're going to cruise over here and take a look at that card here in 1 second. I want to thank the Iron Minotaur for the generous $10 drop. Appreciate that, my friend. Whether you love Cena or hate him, you can't help but admire him for sticking around for so long. He is truly an icon to the young generation of fans and wrestlers, and there will be, you're right, there will be a whole new generation of fans that were kids when he was wrestling, and the next generation, the people that come around after Roman Reigns, and the people that are currently 14, 15, 16, 17 right now, 10 years from now, if they're getting in the business or whatever, that's going to be who they grew up watching. And so they're going to be influenced by that style, by the time period, by everything. And you see that evolutionary process all throughout wrestling, with each generation getting a little stronger, getting a little faster, being a little bit more innovative, because you're going from one generation to the next, getting better and better. And the business is evolving and moving. And now it is vastly different than it was in 1902, the way it looks now, and through the different and various, time periods and eras they went through, and all the different changes they went through. So Cena being a guy, if you're a wrestler and if you were looking for a role model, think about the, wrestlers of Mick Foley's age. Who was Mick Foley's role model? Who inspired him to be a wrestler? The dude who murdered his fucking girlfriend, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. So many wrestlers that we loved, the Austins and the Rocks, some of their heroes weren't so hero-ish. With John Cena, there's going to be a whole generation of wrestlers that are going to look up to him. And there's guys going to be looking up to Randy Orton and other, wrestlers as well. But John Cena specifically, he should be a really good template. He should be a really good blueprint if you're a wrestler of how to carry yourself professionally. Is John Cena perfect? No. Has he done a couple of maybe backstage things that, maybe he enforced his power? Sure. But was he Shawn Michaels or Hulk Hogan? No. So for the most part, if you're looking at a guy who you want to emulate their work ethic, emulate the reputation they have, or how they carry themselves outside of the ring. Have you ever read about a John Cena DUI? Has John Cena ever been arrested for public intoxication? Has John Cena ever failed a wellness test? Has John Cena's name ever been linked to any sexual harassment or anything like that? No, the dude's straight as a grizzly's dick. That's what you want in wrestling. That's who you should aspire to be. That's who you should look up to and admire. And John Cena is a great role model, and he's probably going to help a lot of things continue to grow and push forward. A lot of things that people like Undertaker don't like with the video games and, not being a drug-addicted, violent, insecure, political piece of shit. Instead, you're positive, you're happy, you enjoy life, work, what you do. Count your blessings that you're able to earn a living in this crazy form of entertainment. You got a side hustle where you play video games and interact with your audience. Just loving life, making money, and having a good time doing it without swallowing 30 Vicodin in a day or drinking a fifth of Jack, or feeling the need to go out and punch people and fight in bars. It's a different era. It's a different generation. Things change, and I think those things will continue to change. And I think a lot of that ugliness in wrestling, the alcohol and the drug abuse, addiction, deaths and overdoses are getting thinner and thinner and thinner as we go. And not that they're going to go away completely. You're always going to have that problem. Right now, I'm sure there are people in WWE and AEW, even with a wellness policy, that have some sort of a drug problem that could be growing as we speak. But the percentage of these people is way lower than it used to be back in the day, where I'd say probably anywhere from 60 to 80% of the locker room was fucked up all the time in the 80s and 90s. And just having that change and us being able to visibly see that change over the last, several years with the occasional dark spot. Now a lot of the focus has shifted away from, drug abuse and stuff like that to mental health. Now you're starting to see Hana Kimura situations, and Daphne and things like that are, really sad, and that's starting to be a problem. So, hopefully using John Cena and people like him as role models will really help the stars of the future try to keep that stuff in check, and just try to be the best person and individual they can be, and John Cena is a pretty good role model to look up to if you were a kid. I wish I had John Cena, as a kid. I had, my heroes were He-Man and Hulk Hogan, and my wrestling heroes, weren't that hero-ish, although I'm pretty proud of Bret Hart, although I wouldn't recommend going through life being that bitter. I think that's unhealthy. So Bret's not perfect either, but, a lot of my heroes and a lot of wrestling fans my age, people we looked up to, like I said, Mick Foley looking up to Snuka, and, and people looked up to Hogan and Flair, and a lot of guys that just did dirty things and dirty people, so it's nice to see that changing and to see the business growing and progressing instead of regressing, which is what we're seeing in this country, right now. So it's nice to see the progression move forward in wrestling. That's what we need. And that's just going to preserve and help preserve the future as we go down the road. But yeah, Bobby's going to lose sadly on Saturday. He might. And the only way I would be okay with that is if there was some sort of a John Cena tie-in. But I really just think I'm holding out hope and being way too optimistic for something that's just not going to happen. I don't think we're going to see John Cena at SummerSlam, and that's sad. That is sad. All right, seeing if that is it. Did I miss anybody else up here? Yeah, I did. I got to get these other super chats that I missed earlier. My bad. If any of you are saying to me, hey, you missed my super chat, don't worry, I see them now. Stone Cold, I got that one from you earlier, but I missed your other one, your $5 one, which you chime in by saying, wasn't aware Cena hasn't won the IC title. He should before he hangs it up. Yeah, he hasn't won the Intercontinental title. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that one with Cena. It's pretty amazing that he hasn't won that title. I think it's not by design. I think he was just always involved in the world title situation. It wasn't because, wow, I can't believe they never gave it to him, or why didn't they think he was worthy? It's because he was never down that far on the card. He was always at the top. Brock Lesnar, right, has never won the Intercontinental title. That guy went straight to the top as soon as he got there. John Cena is a former U.S. champion, however. Winning the Intercontinental title at this point, that ugly-ass fucking belt that means nothing, although it being around the waist of Walter right now does have a chance to elevate it a little bit, but I don't really need him to be honest. I mean, if you want to complete the bingo card there and you want to be a full-blown Grand Slam champion, I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy that there's going to be people like, maybe like Dolph Ziggler, maybe some other examples that have actually won more championships than John Cena when it's all said and done. So if they want to just give it to him, they could, but I think that's all it would be. I think it would be a matter of like getting it done. It wouldn't be John Cena, chasing after a title and winning it. It would just be WWE saying, let's give him the Intercontinental title to put it on his resume or whatever. So I don't even feel like it would be special unless John Cena came back and used that as motivation and say, I was thinking about my WWE career and there's one championship I just never happened to win, never came across the Intercontinental title, never had a match, never had an opportunity. I don't think we need Walter losing to John Cena or Gunther losing to John Cena, so I don't think that needs to happen right now. But in the future, I guess I'll say that I wouldn't be against it, but I don't need it. So if John Cena wins the Intercontinental title, cool. He's the Intercontinental champion. Glad he added that to his resume. But not winning the title isn't going to make me think any less of John Cena or his career or the mark he made on the business, Jay Lambo missed that 5 from you earlier as well. Apologize for that. I'm glad Cena came back. Congrats to him. 20 years is a long time in the company, and that really has been uninterrupted. Granted, in the last couple of years, he's been doing more movies and stuff, but generally he's still been under the WWE umbrella. If anything, now he's starting to transition out. And he's been a big part of WWE all the way from his debut all the way up until at least, 2017, 2018? He was pretty much on the show all the time, maybe even 2019. When did Cena officially kind of fall off? Maybe late 2019, 2020 was when we started seeing him less. So he made it damn near that entire 20 years of working a full-time schedule. He was injured a couple times, but every time he Deadpool healed himself in record time and made it back when we weren't even expecting him to. So the guy's been an Iron Man. He's gone on every public appearance. He's never stopped. He's never slowed down. When he feels like he's doing too much, he asks to do more. There's really not a better, role model, work ethic type of guy that you could ask for in John Cena. Today's kids are so lazy and shit, They all call in sick at their jobs and, they got the fucking sniffles and they think they can't they can't leave the house. Try having a career like John Cena. My God, it takes ambition, takes drive. You got to be motivated and be willing to do that stuff, and you have to be built that way. And some people just are born without that, Some people just don't have it in them. And John Cena definitely does have it in him, and he deserves all the congrats. I mean, really, there's only a few things in my life in general, even in my personal life, separated from wrestling, that I'm that stubborn about. But I was steadfast in my defense of John Cena and my support of John Cena throughout the years, just because I appreciated, what he was giving to wrestling. Even though he wasn't appealing to the young 18 to 34-year-old crowd, I appreciated what he was doing in general. And yeah, he wasn't for me, but I understood, I got it, and thought he was an excellent representation. And that was really, at the end of the day, the only message I was ever trying to convey in my commentaries back in the day. As I have Bub, who looks like he's kind of, like when an animal wants your attention and they get frustrated, they start changing positions. I think he wants to eat, and he might be hot. But yeah. All right, buddy, we'll feed you some food. I'm about to sign off here. But yeah, we're going to watch Money in the Bank this Saturday and do a review on it. So I don't know how WWE is going to be able to top Forbidden Door, but then again, we were all pretty worried about Hell in the Cell, and that turned out to be a pretty damn good pay-per-view. So I think Money in the Bank can still be fun. Very interested on Saturday if we get any one-night cash-ins and who these Money in the Bank briefcase winners are going to be. I feel like it could be Becky and Seth. They're on the fucking poster. It's the two of them making it rain with Benjamin, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if it turned out to be the two of them, which I wouldn't really hate. They're perfect for the briefcase. Fans are going to, we should have somebody else. So prepare for those comments. You'll get them. But I wouldn't hate Becky and Seth. It would probably be the most entertaining. But also giving it to Sami Zayn would be so much fun. I think Riddle would be fun. There's some options there. So let me look over here, by the way. Who's our qualifiers for this on the women's side? We have... So wait a minute. There's 7. Is that what it is? There's 7 people in each of these matches, so it's an odd number, right? So for the women, we've got Raquel and Lacey Evans, Shotzi Blackheart, or Shotzi, Asuka, Liv Morgan, and Alexa Bliss. And then, of course, Becky Lynch qualified tonight. And then for the men, I think we have still 2 spots or 1 spot left to fill because they filled Riddle tonight. We have Seth and Drew McIntyre, Omos, Sheamus, and Sami Zayn already qualified. You add Riddle to this after tonight, and I guess they're going to maybe, qualify 1 more on SmackDown, maybe on Friday? Is that what they're doing? This is the least amount of attention I've ever spent on like a Money in the Bank. I've barely been paying attention who qualifies. I did not even see. I haven't watched SmackDown in like 3 weeks. I haven't even seen whatever matches Raquel, Lacey, and Shotzi had to qualify. I didn't see them. I have no idea. So it is what it is, whatever. Carmella as well, challenging Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. We know that. Ronda Rousey is going to be defending her SmackDown title against Natalya. They did the bit on SmackDown where Natalya dressed as her, and they've been having some pretty personal beef. They've been taking some pretty hard shots at each other on social media to the point where you could believe that maybe they're not messing around. And this is a little bit more of a shoot than it is a work. But other than that, Theory and Lashley for the U.S. title. We got the 2 women's title matches as well. And then the 2 Money in the Bank matches. Oh, and the tag team title match. So that's all we've got. 6 matches announced for this. 2 women's world titles, tag team titles on the line, U.S. title on the line, and the men's and women's Money in the Bank. They will probably do the bookend thing here, I would think. Maybe women open the show, men close. And are we going to get a one-night cash-in? I kind of vote no. I don't need the one-night cash-in. I prefer us to wait. Sometimes I feel like WWE unloads these briefcases a little bit too early, and they could be really a good tool to use later on in the year when maybe interest is down or something, and you've got that to dangle on the fan's face and maybe make it seem like there could be a cash-in if you do a title match or something. I think it helps. So we've done plenty of one-night cash-ins before. I don't necessarily need one this time, but if we do, I'll be welcome to hear or happy to hear suggestions about who could cash in on who there if they did wind up doing that. Yeah, Trey, Cena could show up and do Brock Lesnar, and I even mentioned John Cena as the winner of the Money in the Bank a couple weeks ago. I said, the only thing that worries me there is I think fans are finally starting to come around on him and not be such raging, throbbing assholes towards the guy. Finally, we've made it. For him to show up and win the Money in the Bank, I think that can open a lot of wounds for fans that have just started to heal from some of their Cena wins too much traumatization that they had to go through as kids, and to reopen all those wounds again. I don't know if it's something I would want to do. John Cena did win Money in the Bank in 2014, and the fans pissed their pants in anger when the writing was so on the wall. It was so crystal clear, obvious that Brock was going to SummerSlam to win that title. So Cena winning the title in 2014 at Money in the Bank when he unhooked him and the fans got pissed. I'm like, just chill, man. Just chill, because he's going to be dropping the belt, and he will. But now doing that, I suppose it could be fun, but the briefcase also, is such a good tool for a heel to use to cash in. John Cena is the type of wrestler, because he has been unsuccessful in one of his cash-ins before. Seth Rollins brought that up tonight. Cena is the type of guy where if he does win the briefcase, he's going to set his time and date. Kind of like Cody was probably going to do. If Cody was healthy and he wound up winning this, would probably be just like Cena, where he would call his shot and say, I'm not going to take advantage or come cash in or anything like that. I want to beat you fair and square, one-on-one, in a scheduled advertised match. I feel like Cena would do the same thing. And sometimes that can be a little bit less fun than some crazy heel or some really, really fun babyface like a Big E holding the briefcase for a while and making it fun. So we'll see. I don't think I would want to see Cena show up and win the Money in the Bank briefcase. As much as I want him to be a part of SummerSlam, I don't think the briefcase is where it's at for him. Liv could win Money in the Bank, although based on her win tonight, I feel like she won't. Oh, really? No woman has... I didn't even know that. No woman has held the briefcase longer than a day since Carmella won it. I think Carmella... Okay, because Carmella won the first two, right? First one was like the Ellsworth thing, and then she won it again. They kind of made up for that. And then I believe after that, help me with my history, was it Alexa Bliss? And then she cashed in that night at Money in the Bank. I remember that. And then what else? Maybe, I guess, Asuka. What happened last year? I know then Asuka won the empty or the Stamford office Money in the Bank and then was given the title the next night on Raw. What happened last year? Who the fuck won the thing last year? Who won it last? I don't even know. You guys will tell me. Let me think real hard. Who won the Money in the Bank briefcase last year for the women? You guys are going to have to tell me because I really just don't know. Oh, man. Cena wins Money in the Bank. Cena, Brock, Roman, three-way at SummerSlam. I think a lot of fans would prefer that over Roman and Brock again. Man. And I'm okay with the Seth Rollins idea, too, because I pitched this. Nikki ASH. That's right. Nikki ASH won the briefcase last year. Thank you for that. Yes, he totally forgot about that. It was kind of forgettable. But the Seth idea that I pitched a couple of weeks ago or a couple of podcasts ago would be him, because it's a last man standing match at SummerSlam between Brock and Lesnar. I'm sorry, between Brock and Roman. So if Seth wins Money in the Bank, I pitched the idea of Brock and Roman doing some mega spot at SummerSlam where it's a big suplex off the ceiling and they fucking fall 100 feet through 9 tables and to the floor, and they're both just laid out. And then right before the referee starts counting both guys down to 10, Seth Rollins' music hits. He comes out, he gives the referee the briefcase and says, I want to enter the last man standing match and now make it a three-way last man standing match. So go ahead and count. And then Seth can be dancing and laughing as loudly and as obnoxiously as he can as that referee counts both guys out for 10, leaving Seth as the last man standing. Here are your belts, Mr. Rollins. You are now the champion. And he wins 2 championship belts without lifting a finger and defeating both Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar without even moving a finger towards them in offense, just dancing and laughing. I'd be perfectly fine with that, especially if they closed the show with that. Brock and Roman main event, Seth's dancing, Seth's laughing, guys get counted out for 10, ring announcer announces Seth as the new champion, the new champion, belts are handed to him, he gets on the ropes, salutes the crowd, fade to black. Oh my God, watermark, whole deal. I would love that. Nobody would say, oh, we've always seen this before. No, we haven't. Yeah, it was those same 2 guys at WrestleMania 31. Totally different situation, though. All 3 participants are vastly different characters than they were 7 years ago. Vastly different situation. Really unique way to win the title, and something that Seth can use to brag about forever. Just like Jericho said that he beat Austin and Rock on the same night, and he still says it to this day. You know, Seth saying that he beat Rock, because what Jericho can't say is that he beat Austin and Rock on the same night twice. So Rollins can now say, I beat Brock and Roman both on the same night twice, even though maybe WrestleMania 31. Well, no, he did make that a triple threat. So, yeah, he did beat them both. So I think they should do that, or something similar to that would be a lot of fun at SummerSlam. But then you got wild cards. You got Riddle, who's a lot of fun, who's bubbling up. WWE, I think, is going to make a major star in the company. You can just kind of feel it there. And then the wild card, Sami Zayn, recently signed new WWE contract, big match with Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania. He's doing the shit with the Bloodline. he could sneak in the back door and cash in or something. And, then of course he would get murdered by Roman Reigns, but they could do something there. I think would be a lot of fun. I like Sammy, but the key for me here in WWE was fun. I just want them to make this as fun of a summer as possible with these Money in the Bank matches and these Money in the Bank briefcase winners. And the cool thing about Money in the Bank briefcase is it really does open up lots and lots of possibilities. So at least we have that, and it's not as easy to predict as you might think. Will they ever put shoes on Riddle? I kind of hope not. I think that's kind of part of his shtick is to wrestle without the shoes. I think if they were going to, they already would have, because WWE changes everything. They change everything about everybody, your name, your music, your presentation, everything. So if they wanted him to put on shoes, they've probably already pitched it, and he said, no, I'd rather not, or they allowed him to work with no shoes. I always thought that if he got hurt real bad and really tore up an ankle, they would insist that he wear them. But he's been wrestling this style for quite some time, and he's been fine. So we'll see. If one day he gets some sort of an injury, maybe he'll transition to shoes on his own. He'll choose to do that. Choose the shoes. That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe. But in terms of WWE forcing him, I think if they were, they already would have, because that's kind of like what they do. Why do people constantly cheer heels? It's ruined wrestling. Well, it kind of. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying there, but wrestling isn't 1984 anymore. And that's what people like you, Mike, and me, who are the same age and remember AWA and shit like that, we got to realize. I pine and I miss and I have fond memories of the 80s, but I also understand that it ain't the 80s anymore. And what applies then does not apply now. And now you can find any reason to get behind a wrestler. I was also going to the shows around the time and the era in wrestling where cheering the heels was kind of cool. I think a lot of people still consider it cool, but back in the Attitude Era, we would do that. Me and my buddies would go and we'd kind of cheer the heels just to be different or whatever. And so that kind of bubbled, but now doing it, I don't really see the point much anymore, but I do think it's okay to find heels that you like and are entertained by. Because wrestling is so out of the closet now. It was easy to hate Roddy Piper in the 80s when you're 10, based on his mic work and all the nasty things he's saying on the mic, because you're fucking 10 and you're saying, yeah, you don't appreciate what a good promo he is at age 10. I just knew that Roddy Piper was loud and obnoxious and he drove me fucking nuts. You're not at that age appreciating a wrestling promo. So I think as you get older and the longer you watch wrestling, some of that stuff you really start to appreciate more. And then for somebody like me who covers wrestling as my second job on YouTube and stuff, it's my job to talk about these things and find things about characters that I like, find things that I think they're doing right, find ways and reasons to like them. And plus, now also in 1984, everything was so closed off and one-dimensional. You had no interactions with these wrestlers. Hogan didn't have an Instagram where he's posting pictures all over the place with fellow wrestlers or going to the beach or eating sushi. He's not posting videos thanking the fans for stuff or being humanized in any way. We see all these wrestlers in their regular lives. We see them, on social media. We see them on Instagram, on Twitter. We see them at wrestling shows, at conventions, at autograph signings. It's a lot different than it was in 1984, and you're starting to develop more of a personal connection with a lot of these wrestlers, even if they are a heel. And then just wrestling fans in general, there's that portion of the audience that wants to, treat wrestling legitimately and really analyze everything and really pick apart heels and baby faces and that stuff, and doing a little bit more of that than just enjoying the programming. But that's just the nature of the beast now. Everybody's on the internet. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody's got a Twitter, and I guess priorities change in wrestling, and maybe you just start appreciating stuff a little bit more. And I know my age, now when I look back at all the years I've been watching wrestling, the different time periods, the promotions, the wrestlers and the characters, the heels and the baby faces that I've seen in the 40 years I've been watching this, I've been able to see what works, what doesn't, what I like, what I don't like, what was bad, what was a terrible gimmick, what was a good idea, what's a good formula, what's a bad formula. You see all this stuff. So, for fans that cheer the heels just to be a troll, fuck them. But I am okay with somebody cheering a heel because they appreciate the work that they do. People like MJF and stuff who, maybe the young fans or a 1984 mentality should hate, but we're in 2022 now, and things are just a little bit different. Oh, man, good point. If we would have gotten a CM Punk pre-tape for Cena. Now, according to the Fightful Select article that was put up, they said that everybody they requested they got. So Tony Khan had no issue with letting anybody do that. And plus, it took 2 minutes of their time? Everybody's got a phone now. It's not like you got to send a camera crew down there or nothing. So everybody's got the time to do it. So they just filmed it on their phone, emailed it to whatever WWE guy they needed to, and that was that. So I think that was really cool for people that have had history with Cena to be a part of that. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast here, I really hope that that's something that can continue in the future, because that benefits us whenever we can see fun cameos like that. It's a blast to talk about. It's always great. So, anywho, I think I'm going to get out of here now. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button out the door if you have not done that already. Our next scheduled video will be on Wednesday. The link is already up on the channel right now. Just go to the AEW Dynamite Reaction playlist. It's right at the top. Go ahead and save that for Wednesday. We will be here together to watch Blood and Guts. Cesaro is a part of this now, and we had some interesting developments at the end with Kingston and Moxley, too, at the end of the Forbidden Door, so maybe we're looking at a swerve here, but I feel like Jericho Appreciation Society is probably going to go down in that, and there's going to be a lot of blood and a lot of guts. So we will be here on Wednesday to watch that together. And then at the end of the week, we wrap things up with Money in the Bank predictions on Friday, Money in the Bank review on Saturday, and then I'm out of here for a week. So you guys take care. Have a great rest of your Monday night. Long live John Cena, and I'll see you Wednesday for Blood and Guts. Y'all be cool. Peace.